Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. I'm your host, RENEE Swanson. I am not a therapist, and you are not a victim. When you gather a group of survivors of covert narcissistic abuse in one space, you never know exactly what's going to happen. Some arrive ready to pour their hearts out. They're so eager to talk that they come in the door, hi, I'm Jennifer, and I'm a victim of covert narcissistic abuse. But others come in so terrified they can't even speak. They're afraid of being judged, dismissed, even afraid that somehow their abuser has followed them across the country and knows where they are and is going to hear every word they say. Both of these reactions are so valid. And this past weekend, I had the privilege of holding the space for both sides of this. It's our fourth annual CNG retreat. And I say annual, but next year we're going to be holding more. Like next year, we're going to have one in the spring, maybe one in the summer, one in the fall. So just know that these are coming because they're really working as a place of connection for people who are dealing with this in a world where no one else seems to get it. No one else seems to see us. This past weekend, I had the privilege of hosting this CNG retreat, and I want to take a moment and share some of it with you here today. Not because I can capture everything that happened, I couldn't possibly do that, but because there were lessons, moments, transformations that were worth bringing here. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. Think of this episode as your seat in that retreat, right there among the women who came together to share, to cry, to laugh, and to finally be understood and seen. We had 15 ladies who gathered together for this weekend of support. And I recognize there are many men who are living this as well. So this one was a retreat for just women, but I have held some that have been for that mix of women and men. So this was 15 ladies who gathered together for a weekend of support, community, understanding. Now think about that for a moment. 15 women who have lived through covert narcissistic abuse. You know what that means. These are women who have been silenced in their own homes, women who have walked on eggshells so long that their feet ache with the memory of it. This is women who have been told again and again that their feelings don't matter, that their memories are wrong, and that their reality is not real. These are women who have not been given the space to exist in their own home. It means women who have carried unspeakable pain behind polite smiles, who have pushed down tears at family gatherings, who have hidden their truth to survive another day. It means women who, in their darkest hours, question their own sanity, because that's exactly what covert narcissistic abuse does to you. And yet here we were, together, sitting in one room, breathing the same air, looking around and realizing maybe for the first time in their lives that they're not the only one. Some participants, like I said, walked in full of eagerness. They're so ready to talk, ready to share, finally to be heard. Finally, somebody who gets it, and they can't wait to share their story. Others, though, walk in with this visible doubt and fear. You can see it in them. You can see it in their eyes. You can hear it in the tremor of their voices, and you can even feel it in their silence. Some were so terrified to speak openly about covert narcissism, as though, their words were going to make it more real. Like, I can't live in denial anymore. If I speak it, it means I have to accept that this is what's happened. And so they're terrified to finally speak their truth. Each woman had carried their truth for years, locked inside, and the moment they felt safe, those words spilled out like water breaking through a dam. In those first few hours, it became so clear to me that this was going to be a retreat full of connection, honesty, vulnerability, and the most important piece, healing. What struck me right away is it didn't matter whether someone was talking nonstop or sitting quietly in the corner. It was okay either way. Everyone was accepting of that. And the courage was in just showing up. Just being there, stepping outside that small corner of the world that you are living in, and even if only for a few days, you see this glimpse of life outside of covert narcissism. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk into a room where you don't know if you're going to be understood, and yet every single person who walked in that door brought something essential to the group. I watched the quiet ones who slowly started to nod when someone else spoke, their eyes down, looking at the ground, afraid to make eye contact, and nodding their head as if to say, yes, that's my story too. I watched the eager ones. They created this momentum that kind of carried the group forward as they share their stories and the others start opening up. And I realized again and again that healing isn't even about the one who speaks the most. It's about the space created when these survivors are together. While the ones who are speaking, they start sharing their stories and just give it a little bit of time. And those ones who are quietly nodding, they start sharing their stories too. And it's profound. The discussions that unfolded were powerful. We talked about the childhood scripts that we were handed. Messages like, be the peacemaker, don't upset anyone, sacrifice yourself for others. These scripts came from our families, our churches, our schools, our friends, and our cultures. Scripts that trained us to ignore our intuition and accept what should not have been acceptable. Accept putting everyone else's needs before our own to the point of not being able to have any needs of our own. Forgive and forget. Turn the other cheek. Have some compassion. Messages that are valid. These are not bad things, but we take them so far that we deny any emotional need or any emotional growth of our own. We talked about how these scripts made us vulnerable to covert narcissistic abuse, how they taught us to minimize our pain, excuse the bad behavior, and keep giving and giving until there was nothing left to give. And that's exactly what we all did in our marriages. We talked about the difference between the normal struggles in a non-narcissistic marriage and one with a covert narcissistic partner. You see, normal struggles happen. They're inevitable moments when partners, get their feelings hurt or they get upset about something. This happens. This is life. It's going to happen in any relationship. The difference lies in how these moments are handled. What happens between them? When you have the bad moments of hurt feelings or sharp words, what happens between them? And one simple question jumps out again and again. Is there repair? Is there a safe space for things to get resolved, for true reconciliation to happen? When you have that, trust grows and the relationship deepens. But when you don't have that, trust disappears and the relationship dissolves. That difference is huge. By the way, so many of us walk away from these relationships feeling guilty about breaking up the relationship or about no longer putting in the effort, about, hey, you changed and you gave up on us, all of the things that we hear, plus the things that we feel inside. We have given up on the marriage and we hate that about ourselves, okay? I know I reached that point that I gave up. But I want each of you to hear me when I say this. When you try to reconcile over and over and continue being met with rejection and blame, this creates a massive division in the relationship. Where trust should be, instead, there is this giant rift. And if you've given it your all, you've poured sincerity and compassion into this, you've approached this with honesty, openness, vulnerability, looking for that repair, only to be met with more dissension, more blame, more gaslighting, then this isn't on you. Hold your head up and stand in your own character. I want you to hear me that guilt does not belong on your shoulders. At this retreat, we talked about the cages that have held us in place for so many years. With 15 of us there, we had over 300 years of marriage represented. 300 years. Wow. Now then we started asking, okay, what held us there for so long? Traits such as loyalty, hardworking, forgiving, empathetic, peaceful, determined, hopeful. These aren't bad traits. No, for many of us, these are our strengths. When I looked around that room, I did not see a bunch of, you know, blame shifting, gaslighting, circular conversation. I didn't see people being competitive or manipulative. That's not what I found. And that's not what I find in these groups when I work with the women and men that I work with who've dealt with covert narcissistic abuse. I don't find that in these conversations. And these retreats is a really good time to see their true character. What I find is hardworking, forgiving, peaceful, people who give to each other. They give the space for each other. They validate each other. They hear each other. When I looked around the room at that retreat, at those amazing, strong women, I hate what we have all been through, but I am so honored to be a part of a group that carries such wonderful traits. Don't ever let anyone tell you that these traits are a problem, that it's your fault, your weakness, a deficit, a negative in your world. Absolutely not. In fact, without these traits, our world would totally collapse. It is exactly what our world needs. And these narcissistic people in our life, it's what they need. They need the empathy and the peacekeeping and the forgiving and the ability to compromise. They need these things. Okay, so while they're blaming you for them, I want you to recognize that you bring a whole lot of value to this world. We covered setting boundaries to protect those beautiful traits. We covered dealing with the fog of cognitive dissonance, breaking through the hypervigilance, and so much more. We even talked often about the massive impact that all of this is having on our kids, how they are growing up in the shadow of someone else's manipulation and control. The question that hung so heavy in the room is, how do we help them? How do we break the cycle? In fact, one of our members asked me to do an episode that she can give to her adult children to help them understand. And I promise that, yes, I will do this. I am working on it, so please keep an eye out for that. It's such an important topic. Now, these weren't light conversations. These were heavy conversations. There were lots of tears, lots of laughter too, but lots of tears. These conversations were raw, honest, painful, and deeply necessary. Over the course of the weekend, something beautiful began to happen. The fear that walked into the door started to soften. The silence that once felt heavy turned into a silence of deep listening to each other. There were tears, there was laughter. There were moments of, I thought I was the only one, that turned into, I'm so relieved I'm not alone. By the end, what began as a room full of strangers turned into something else. Something like a circle of solidarity. Fear had been replaced by relief, doubt had been replaced by connection, and isolation had been replaced by belonging. These are connections now that will go forward in their life with each other, supporting each other on this journey. It has always been my mission to create a community of people who get it. Not just me. I cannot go out and hug the world. I need you guys to hug each other, to hold each other up. As I look back on this retreat, what stays with me the most is that healing happens in connection. It happens when we risk sharing our story and discover that it doesn't push people away. And in fact, it actually draws people closer. So, to the participants of this retreat, thank you. Thank you for your honesty, your courage, your trust, your vulnerability, your support that you offered to each other. And to you listening right now, know that your story matters too. You deserve to be heard without judgment. You deserve to find the spaces where honesty and vulnerability are welcomed, not punished. And if you ever get the chance to step into a retreat like this one, I hope that you give yourself that gift. Yes, I am going to be opening more retreats next year, so 2026, look out, here we come. I'm going to start opening them up to other parts of the country and maybe even other parts of the world. That's coming. I don't know how soon yet, but it is coming. Future retreats that are already in the works are places such as Colorado, Pennsylvania, of course, back to Kentucky, which is where this last one was. Your story matters. You deserve to be heard without judgment. And if you're ready to take that next step towards healing, check out my coaching services. Go ahead and join this community. Don't wait on the retreat. Go ahead and join in, and let's start making those connections. You can find all the information at covertnarcissism.com. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so that you can stay on this journey. Keep getting the information you need and keep spreading awareness to our world. Every one of you that likes or subscribes or comments helps continue to build this audience. I wish you all so much peace on your journey of healing. You have been listening to the Covert Narcissism podcast, where we break apart the insidious nature of these incredibly destructive and infinitely frustrating individuals. If you are caught up in this crazy-making relationship and drowning in self-doubt, guilt, or rumination, please reach out to me anytime. I offer individualized live coaching in both group and individual settings. We can find the right program for you. You do not need to go through this alone. You can find all of that information on my website at covertnarcissism.com. You can also reach out to me by email at RENEE, RENEE, at covertnarcissism.com. I do look forward to hearing from each and every one of you. Remember, I am not a therapist, and you are not a victim. I am a coach, and you are a survivor. The information provided by Renee Swanson, Covert Narcissism Podcast, and CNG Life Coaching is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes. It is not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. Renee shares stories from her personal experience as well as from those that she has worked with for several years. Her material does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support an allegation or support a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and the information provided. Thank you.